conversation that you wouldn't want to talk about could get when it Kremlin warns of nuclear World War III that will be catastrophic. And this is by Lee Brown. So a lot of these articles are coming out, which is extremely alarming. And so I'll say that in the lead. So former United States Security Advisor John Bolton said that Putin would be signing a suicide note if he uses nuclear weapons. So there's a video attached to it. You can look at it on your own free time. So this is not a joke. This is a serious video here, and I vaguely mentioned it in previous videos. So Russia bluntly warned Thursday that further meddling by Western powers in the Ukraine would spark World War III. So it is a threat. And so it isn't just an idle bluff either. So this time a nuclear one that would be catastrophic for all mankind. So it's not just the U.S. that would be impacted. It would be all mankind is basically the way they put it. So a top Kremlin official specifically threatened worldwide carnage if NATO approves Ukraine's bid to join its alliance. So Kyiv is well aware that such a step would mean a guaranteed escalation to nuclear World War III. The Deputy Secretary of Russia's Security Council, Alexander Venediktov, told the state's TASS news agency. The warning came a day after a senior NATO official said a Russian nuclear strike would almost certainly trigger a physical response from Ukraine's allies. And Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the U.S. was committed to defending every inch of NATO's territory. So, however, Venediktov took that to mean that the Western powers and Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky were planning preemptive strikes. And so every now and then you might see some still photos of some things that are happening, like a top Kremlin official gives a chilling warning of a potential nuclear World War III. And so you'll see still photos. The Kremlin official said Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky knows that NATO's membership would mean a guaranteed it would be an escalation to a nuclear World War III. So Zelensky's words are not just some kind of remark, but an open call for Third World War, which is a nuclear world war in which there could be no winners, Venediktov said. So despite his own president, Vladimir Putin, repeatedly threatened the use of nuclear weapons, which this is what he has threatened, warning that he is not bluffing. So Venediktov insisted excuse me if I'm mispronouncing some of the names, but they're said in Russian, insisted without evidence that only the West was making such threats. Okay. So it says Russian officials have never voiced a threat to use the weapons. This is what they're saying of mass destruction, he claimed, ignoring Putin's. Okay, so there's ads, but this is serious. His repeated threats. Putin's had repeated threats during the national broadcast, basically laying out what his intentions are. The start of the invasion, and we know what that is. The start of the invasion when they went into the Ukrainian territory, which they pretty much have taken over that area. Meanwhile, in Europe, some politicians openly call for such actions. Even a number of politicians in the EU, the United Nations, are do not conceal and do not rule out the possibility of using weapons of mass destruction against Russia, he claimed, without evidence. So he claimed that there are very serious doubts that the adequacy of Zelensky, suggesting that the Ukrainian president is a puppet whose actions and words are dictated by others. So therefore, it would be a good for the West to realize that their protege can take on so much that Washington and Brussels will have to think about how to deal with the consequences. So Lenditov suggested that the dangerous comments were only being made because in the West, fewer and fewer people remember what war is. And so for some, many believe that nuclear war can be waged locally, he said. But we must remember a nuclear conflict will affect absolutely the whole world, and not only Russia and the collective West, but in general, any country on the planet. So when they say World War, nuclear World War III, it means all of the countries on the planet. So its consequences will be catastrophic for all mankind, he warned ominously, days after President Biden conceded fears of impending Armageddon. Okay, so this is how serious this is. Lenditov's interview was given as Russian missiles pounded more than 40 Ukrainian cities and towns on Thursday, continuing the dramatic escalation that started on Monday. So the southern port city of Mykolaiv came under massive bombardment, while missiles also struck 30 multi-story buildings and houses in the city of Nikopol and the Dnipropetrovsk region. And I may not be pronouncing that the way it should be pronounced, but those that know and are more able to pronounce these Russian words could understand, and those that have seen the video of what has happened between Russia and Ukraine would know where this is coming from. So thousands were left without power after gas pipelines and power lines were hit. And so this was pretty catastrophic. I think just within that area, to look at it, you're going to see also that drones were flown over. And this is what I was talking about in the previous video. They have drones that can come over and then drop bombs just like that. So the drones also hit the region around Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, which until this week had gone months without such airstrikes. So the UN human rights body said such attacks, including the missiles that had hit just feet from a playground, amounted to war crimes. So Putin blamed the escalation of the Ukrainian terrorist acts after Russia's key bridge to Crimea was hit on Sunday. So the Speaker of Russia's lower legislative house, the State Duma, used the same excuse. This was on Thursday as he warned of worse atrocities that are to come. And so take a look at this. It looks like a meteor or crater of some sort hit it. And it's right near a children's playground. I don't know if you can see what I'm looking at, but it's deep. It's a deep hole. And it looks like it's, close to a kid's playground, which is really disturbing. That if any child or children were there, they would have also felt this. This would have been a really deadly, horrible scene here. So that's pretty much, it says, nowhere in the world does anyone negotiate with terrorists. And so this is from Vyacheslav Vladin, who wrote on his Telegram channel. So if the terrorist attacks by Kyiv regime continue, the response will be even tougher. So that's pretty much that article right there. So this is this is real, you know, and I know that they've been very, very careful to post these things. They've been very quiet about it. Maybe because they don't want to ruffle any feathers, and they're afraid that something could occur. But you know, if something is going to happen, we don't have much control over it, do we? But what I do know is that we should be aware that this is going on, and not, you know, go around just like we deny climate issues, denying the fact that a nuclear World War III could be something that we might have to also be concerned about. Unfortunately, in the way this world is, the way things have been lately. Notice the gas went up, the food prices went up, and some of the oil. They've been fighting over that. There's fighting over water. And there's a lot of things that are in short supply now. You notice all of this is stemming from what is going on there between Russia and Ukraine, and they don't want the West to intervene. And so by us not intervening, what is happening? Is it stopping, slowing us down? And, you know, will it escalate even worse and become something far worse than what we'd ever imagined? And that is the question of this possible nuclear World War III.